President Duda, it seems, it is striking to me how strong the West has been, and other parts of the world as well, in supporting Ukraine. Do you think that the response is strong enough? And more importantly, what everybody worries about is will it stay strong? Robert Gates and Condoleezza Rice wrote an article recently in which they said Putin's goal, his strategy, is that he will outlast the West. The West may be strong now, but it will start splintering as energy crises happen, as financial crises happen. Do you worry about that? How would you respond to this question? Do you worry about the staying power of the West?
So the short answer is, of course, it would be stupid and naive not to, but I think we're going to do it. And I think, you know, of course I worry. I am ultimately extremely confident. And I'm extremely confident first and foremost because of the magnificent, magnificent job Ukraine is doing. We saw President Zelensky just now. I think it's right for all of us to honor Olena Zelenska, who is here with us, and of course Yulia, and the people of Ukraine. And you know, President Duda said something very important, many important things. One was we need to listen to the Ukrainians. And Yulia said it too. We need to get out of a mindset which I think a lot of us had when the Soviet Union first collapsed, of like we were the smart guys and they weren't such smart guys. I also apologize to the Latvians for this attitude. And we need to realize there's a lot we can learn from what Ukraine is doing right now. And that is ultimately the reason that I think we should have a lot of confidence. I think Ukraine is teaching all of us, again, the true strength of democracy. Something that in good times, it's easy to not think about that much, Fareed. And I think what we see in Ukraine is people who are free, people who understand what they're fighting for, and I think very critically, people who have social solidarity. You know, it is so important that President Zelensky is there, that you have millionaires, multimillionaires, and their sons and daughters in Ukraine and on the front line. This is a fight of the whole country. So that's the first reason I'm confident. But the second reason I'm confident is, you know, President Duda quite rightly pointed out that this is a fight ultimately about values, and it is. But I think we in the West also need to understand that that victory that President Zelensky spoke about and that time which he said we need to use, it's not about doing Ukraine favors that we're talking about. Supplying Ukraine with weapons, and as President Zelensky very crucially pointed out, supplying Ukraine with the money it needs to win the war is ultimately in our own self-interest. So I'm a finance minister, and if you were to say to me, what is the one thing that G7 finance ministers, G7 governments this year could do that's actually in our power, right? We don't control COVID. We don't control global supply chains. We don't control whether there will be immaculate disinflation or not. One thing where we have some real practical levers is we can help Ukraine win clearly, definitively. And if we do that, if that happens this year, you know it as well as I do, Fareed, that would be a huge boost to the global economy. So I do think Ukraine is going to win. I think Ukraine is going to win because the Ukrainians have shown total commitment and determination, and they've shown they're smart. I think we're going to win because our people, like I think, which is so often the case in democracy, people are smarter than their leaders. Certainly speaking for Canada, Canadians got this on day one. They understand that we need to stand up for democracy and democratic values, but they also understand our economies, our security, the fact that nuclear deterrence actually works. All of these critical things are really being decided on the battlefields of Ukraine right now. So I am, of course, worried. We would be stupid not to be, but I am ultimately profoundly confident.
Chrystia, you're a money person. This is a challenge for the West at a time when deficits and debt loads are high. Will it be possible to provide Ukraine with the kind of assistance on the scale it needs to rebuild?
Well, before we get to rebuilding, we have to support Ukraine in its fight, and we have to support Ukraine to victory. And I do want to emphasize something that Yulia said about the economic battlefield, and I think she's exactly right. You know, the weapons, absolutely essential. But one of the remarkable things happening in Ukraine right now is it is a functional state. As Yulia said, trains running on time 96% of the time. When President Zelensky went to Kherson, liberated Kherson, one of the first things he said is, now you will get your pensions, and we're going to pay you all the pensions you didn't get when you were under occupation. I think we cannot underestimate how important Ukraine's continued existence as a functional state is to the winning of the war. So we need to get the money now, and it's remarkable, Yulia, bravo, that you guys have been doing it, and we need to continue to support that effort. We heard, I think, from Yulia thanking the international financial institutions, but we need to keep going. Ukraine needs an IMF program. We should make meaningful progress there in the first quarter. And the countries here need to continue to provide support. You spoke, Fareed, and you're absolutely right about being sure that there's public buy-in. So I'll tell you one thing that we did in November, which is Canada issued Ukraine sovereignty bonds. These are guaranteed by Canada's AAA credit rating. They're a Government of Canada bond, but all of the money was earmarked to go directly to Ukraine. We issued $500 million worth of sovereignty bonds, and they were sold out in less than 2 weeks. The Central Bank of Poland bought some of those bonds, so thank you very much, Pane Presidente. And, you know, I think we as democratic Western leaders need to also be, you know, President Zelensky is doing a great job of making sure that our people understand the importance of this fight. I think we also need to be doing that job, and we need to be sure that we are talking, you know, in my case with Canadians, about why this matters. And I actually find they tell me why it matters, but I need to give them opportunities to be part of this fight. And I want to quickly pick up on one thing that Avril said that could kind of get missed, I think, in the flow of all the things we've been talking about, which is the nuclear deterrence point. And I think this is one element. You know, when we talk about the benefits that we get from a Ukrainian victory, one of them that I think we have to really be mindful of is what a Ukrainian victory would mean and what a Ukrainian defeat would mean for nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation in the world. Because I think if Ukraine were to be defeated, then what that tells you is no matter how much you want your sovereignty, no matter how united you are as a country, no matter how prepared you are to fight, if you are fighting a bigger country that has nuclear weapons, you're going to lose. And think about the message that sends to smaller countries around the world. I think an extremely dangerous one. And so from my perspective, that is yet another reason that in supporting Ukraine, we are supporting our own economic well-being and also our own security.